I actually have a question, I suppose, one specific question for each of you. Paul, specifically, at the national conference in San Francisco a couple of years ago, you gave a pretty detailed breakdown of why high schoolers choose to abstain from marijuana. And if I remember, the bottom, or at least the least cited reason is because it's actually illegal. If you could go into perhaps the other reasons that high schoolers do give for why they choose to abstain. And Mr. Johnson, by no means am I opposed to heroin maintenance clinics, but I would just wonder how you would respond to your statement of always saying that you are fiscally conservative and fiscally, responsible, but saying I don't want to fund X, Y, Z programs, but I would like to fund giving heroin away for free. So if those two things, if you could, perhaps just give your justification for that, that would be great.
Well, in the case of the heroin maintenance program, what is the money that we're spending, and what are the benefits? So I just want to point out, just very simply point out, that in Zurich, I think that Zurich citizens, having voted to re-up on their heroin maintenance program, that they found it more than cost effective to do away with all of the crime, all the death, all the disease, all the corruption that goes along with black market heroin, as opposed to providing it for free. They have found this to be very cost beneficial.
Sean, you got good memory. I don't even recall bringing that up in San Francisco, but you're right. There was a paper that was published a couple of years ago, and it's unique because as much as I said earlier, the federal government will constantly say this war on marijuana, this war on drugs, it's all about young people, it's all about deterring use among young people. There was a study put out by Lloyd Johnson, who's not a name anybody in this room would be familiar with, but he is the lead author of something known as the Monitoring the Future study, which is commissioned by the federal government and put out by Ann Arbor every year going back to 1975. And it surveys the attitudes of young people on their use of drugs. So every time the federal government says, we think young people's use of drugs is going up, down, or doing whatever, it's all coming from his annual data. And Lloyd Johnson a few years ago said, I've been collecting this data for 30 years. I've never done a survey to ask people why they either weren't using marijuana at all, or why, if they had used marijuana, they decided to stop using marijuana. So he put about 12 different criteria available, and he surveyed these kids, and he said, was this the main reason you stopped using, or was this the least reason you stopped using? And I don't remember all 12, but you're correct that at the very bottom, the reason people were least likely to give as to why they either don't use marijuana in the first place, or they did and they stopped using marijuana, they both had to do with prohibition. One was because it was illegal, the other one was because the price was too high. And of course, prohibition is supposed to be influencing both of those factors, but when it came to young people's decision to use marijuana, prohibition wasn't playing a role at all. The reason they cited most often for not using marijuana shouldn't surprise anybody either. It was that they personally didn't like it. That simple.
Thank you.